And then we find in verse 8, the tragic climax of this story. It says, and Cain talked with Abel his brother. It looks like they got into an argument. We don't know exactly what they talked about, but it's not hard to imagine. I can imagine Abel saying to Cain, Cain, you know what God has told us that we're supposed to bring. You know that we're supposed to worship God on his terms. You know that we're supposed to obey God. If you brought the right sacrifice, see, he's using the same logic that God did. If you brought the same sacrifice, your offering would be accepted just as well as mine. And what does this do with Cain? It fills him with further fury. He says, who are you, my little brother, to teach me? I'm your older brother, and you should do what I say. And Abel says, I do what God says. And so it says in verse 8, now Cain talked with Abel his brother, and it came to pass when they were in the field that Cain rose up against Abel his brother and killed him. First battle of Armageddon in history. The false worshiper is killing the true worshiper. The disobedient is killing the obedient. The one who really and truly has accepted Jesus is rising against he who claims to serve Jesus, but does not. Are you catching a picture of what we have here? The first battle of Armageddon in history. Now, I want you to notice what we find in the following verses. Verse 9. Then the Lord said to Cain, where is Abel, your brother? By the way, the word brother is used in the first 11 verses, is used 7 times. I think God is trying to emphasize that they were brothers. Is it just possible that the final war is going to be among brothers? People who claim to worship the same God? People who go to church? People who worship? But one group is characterized by worship on God's terms and by obedience to God and by truly receiving Jesus, while the others worship God on their terms and thus disobey God. And though they claim to receive Jesus, they are truly rejecting him. The final war is going to be among brothers. You say, how is this possible? Listen, folks, this is the way it's been all throughout human history. What makes you think that it's going to be any different at the end? You know, we usually as Christians think, oh yeah, we need to be careful about the Arabs and the Muslims and the Russians because they're going to be the ones that are dangerous to us. Scripture does not corroborate that idea. Scripture tells us that our greatest enemies, Jesus said, will be those of our own household. The greatest enemy of Abel was his brother. The greatest enemy of the prophets in the Old Testament were the very people that they were sent to, religious people. Those that crucified Christ were religious people. Those who persecuted God's people during the 1260 years was the church that claimed to follow Jesus Christ. Of course, in the end time, it's going to be different. Our enemies at the end of time are going to be the Chinese and the Russians. Now, how spiritual is that? Let me ask you, are there good and bad Russians? Yes. Are there good and bad U.S. people? Yeah. So if you say that the battle is between Russia and China and the United States, you're saying the battle is the good bad against the good bad. The fact is that the book of Revelation shows that the final battle will be 2 different kinds of people who claim to worship the true God. One group worships on God's terms and obeys God to the letter. The other group disobeys God and worships as they wish.